I'm a bit frustrated because I've recorded this video many times and I banged on the table to make a point in my last video and it was going so well and it stopped the recording. So anyway, hi. My name is Adam and I like to review everything basically. Last night I watched the movie called The Green Mile. And I hadn't watched it for many reasons, but the main reason is I always imagined it to be one kind of movie. And it's not actually the movie that I imagined. It does have a bit of that. Like I imagined it would be about this guy on death row who can perform miracles. And it is about that, but the whole story is told through the perspective of this guy who is very devout and a very good man in a very sort of bad situation. So you can tell he's a good man because he treats the worst people with respect because he feels like everyone deserves respect. And even when he is punishing people for um, you know, not respecting them and himself, he's never like angry about it. And there's a point where one of the guards goes way out of line and something horrific happens. I'm not gonna spoil the movie too much because that's like a really excellent part of the movie. So he's punishing the guy and then he's like, okay, we're going to talk and this is going to be a conversation. It's not going to be a shouting match. It says something like that. So he's put in this kind of very cruel world and he brings this like kind of humanity to it. So he's showing that there is good in this darkness. And then you have him experience this guy who is ultimately good, the ultimate good, and he's suffering because he can feel people's pain, he can hear people's thoughts, he just knows these things. Um, so the prison guard is played in one of his most brilliant roles by Tom Hanks, and the prisoner who's on death row, um, the character's name is John Coffey, like like the drink, but not spelled the same. And great line. Played very brilliantly also by Michael Clark Duncan. And so so the great thing also about the movie is that it spends so much time building this world of the prison and the rituals of the prison and how it looks. Like the set design is perfect, the costume design is perfect, that you're willing to believe that these events really happened. um, so why then so one criticism before I move on to the main thesis of the film, I guess it would be, is that you have uh, Paul Edge. What was his name again? Let's call him Paul. Paul is the main guard, and you have his colleagues who are, for the most part, really, really professional and also good people. And then you have like this one bad apple who lays, he's related to he's the nephew of some important politician, and I think that that is really unrealistic because the job would attract, I'm sure there are good people who do that job, good people like Paul, but there's probably also more people like that other guy who are just attracted to the violence and the sadism of that kind of job. But as I said, the movie does such a great job of world building that you're like, yeah, I can suspend my disbelief about that. Um, then the other thing that I wanted to talk about in this review is John Coffey's character. I realized that he is Jesus, actually. You know, like, and you might think, what? What do you mean he's Jesus? If Jesus came back to America and he was like, why would he come to America? But let's say he chose America. What time period would he be born as? And what kind of person would he be born as? So he'd be born like that, you know. He'd be born uh, a disadvantaged black person in the South in the 1930s. And Paul eventually doesn't believe that John committed the crimes what that he was convicted of, and he does a little bit of investigation on his own. And the lawyer who was defending him says, well, he appeared out of nowhere, but that's not surprising because we're in the middle of the Depression, people are moving around. But he is like such a remarkably large specimen of a man. So if he was such a violent person, that he would have left a trail behind him. So I think that he just suddenly appeared. He didn't have a childhood. He appeared like that, and he was experiencing the world, and eventually it got to him, and he sacrificed himself again. You know, and I'm not a believer, but I think that it's a really powerful message, actually. You know, that the good would come down to this evil place and try to redeem it. And when he died, I was like, am I crying? I'm crying. This is like crazy. Um, so yeah, and there's evidence that he is. Well, I mean, to be fair, there's evidence that he would be Jesus, and there's evidence that the character is not. So the evidence for he does perform miracles, he resurrects a mouse, he cures people. Um, yeah, and he takes away people's pain. Uh, there's this one scene which I won't spoil, but it's like really, really well done. It's really graphic. Um, yeah, the argument that he's not Jesus is that there is this one point where he punishes the some people with something that happens, and you know, I don't think that Jesus ever did that when he was on earth. There's this, throwing the money changers out of the temple kind of thing, but no one dies, right? He didn't murder anybody. And uh, John also doesn't murder anybody directly, but he makes one person. Well, I won't say. I won't say what happens. You can watch it. So yeah, it's like it's one of those movies that's like a quiet classic, I would think. And I was thinking about Shawshank Redemption actually. And so Shawshank Redemption is one of those things that one of those films that became a classic much later. And it's a good film and everything, but I actually like this one better. I think this one deserves to be more of a classic than Shawshank Redemption does. Because who's being redeemed, right? Who? Just some guy who cooked the books. And this is about like this uh it's a more divine story. It's a more mythical story. And maybe that's why it's not as classic, because people can relate more to Shawshank Redemption than they can to this. But yeah, I was really blown away by this movie. I think that this would be one of my favorite movies now, actually. So yeah, what did you think about the movie? Put your comments in the comment section where they belong. Bye bye.